Legacy brands EV startups. It seems like car makers are pumping out electric cars faster than ever. And if you wonder who suffers the most, we'll give you the answers, of course. That would be the dealers. The everlasting bridge between suppliers and consumers, which are now forced to stack up their lots with vehicles customers don't want to buy. At least not in the numbers car makers and authorities were hoping for. New EVs are piling up on dealers' lots in 2024. And if you wonder why, we present to you 7 key reasons. Welcome to Evolution Tech, where technology meets tomorrow, leading the charge into the ever-evolving landscape of electric vehicles, EVs, and groundbreaking green technologies. Number 7, EVs grow significantly slower than expected. Did you check the statements from Biden's officials as well as some car makers from just a few years ago? It seemed like everyone shared the same level of optimism for electric cars. They were all pretty sure that the most radical transition in automotive history would go smoothly in a pretty short period. That's why the government expected 2/3 of new cars to be all electric by 2032. The only problem is that these expectations and predictions weren't based on adequate research. Instead, they were based on momentum. Because back in the day, EVs were on a big swing, mainly because of so-called early adopters. Tech enthusiasts and wealthy consumers ran to get their high-tech wonders. But now, when it's time for common consumers to act, things are not going as smoothly as everyone expected. Number 6, production challenges. As we've just mentioned, the EVs are piling up on dealer lots, so much so that the market supply is currently way over 100 days on average. Of course, car makers are aware that EVs are slow sellers and things can change overnight, and for that reason, some of them already cut production for this year. The best example is the all-electric F-150, with production cut to half of what was planned for this year. But on the other hand, some car makers are stacking up on new EVs, no matter the slow sales, and the reasons are pretty simple. They're making supplies just in case because the production process of electric cars is anything but ideal. Constant troubles with supply chains, especially when it comes to raw materials and battery suppliers, along with the fact that production lines are anything but optimized, are the key reasons why many car makers produce. Number 5, prices are still too high. The stage of early adopters has officially ended, and the rest of the population isn't willing to pay a premium price for the sake of zero emissions. For the common consumer, EVs are still way too expensive. On average, a typical car purchase in 2023 was around $48,000, while in the case of electric cars, it was pretty close to $60,000. That's still a pretty big difference, especially if we consider that interest rates are also way higher than they used to be. In other words, for buyers of new cars, loans cost a lot, and they don't need additional expenses. With that in mind, it doesn't surprise that the slow sellers, those with the highest market day supplies, are the most luxurious EVs, such as the Porsche Taycan, which starts at around $92,000 but is usually paid in 6 figures. That model has a 239 market day supply, and it's followed by a few more luxurious models like the Mercedes EQS and EQS SUV. Number 4, long journeys are still the main concern. From a buyer's perspective, there are still too many question marks about EVs. It's not just about high prices, it's also for practical reasons. Starting from the fact that EVs still can't compete with traditional IC cars in terms of autonomy. At best, customers may count on a little bit over 300 miles, which sets many limitations when it comes to long journeys. EVs may be a great solution for short distances, for things like daily commuting. On the other hand, planning a long trip can easily turn into a nightmare, as you always have to think a few steps ahead and have recharging in mind, which is not just time-consuming but also quite tricky in terms of logistics. For these reasons, it doesn't surprise that among EV owners, a vast majority still own one or more cars with internal combustion engines. Number 3, charging network is also a big concern. EVs are piling up on dealer lots because even those who consider such a purchase hesitate, and one of the main reasons why they hesitate is the charging network, which is still far from perfect. From the user's perspective, this means a whole set of limitations. First of all, there aren't enough chargers even in urban areas. Then there's the time-consuming factor because not all of the chargers on public stations are fast chargers. Finally, the user experience is far from ideal. The best example is the recent survey taken by J.D. Power, which shows that every fifth attempt at charging in a station was unsuccessful last year for various reasons such as faulty payment systems, broken cords, software errors, etc. Number 2, EVs are unreliable. Another reason why EV sales are slowing down is because we've learned that they're significantly less reliable than traditional gas-powered counterparts. According to the latest study by Consumer Reports, which included more than 300,000 vehicles produced between 2000 and 2023, electric cars caused 80% more problems than gas-powered cars. That's completely the opposite compared to what we've been hearing so far. The media has been convincing us that EVs are superior in this aspect and that they require less maintenance. In theory, that makes sense if we consider that electric cars feature fewer parts than gas-powered vehicles. In reality, EVs are still pieces of new technology that need time for polishing. At the moment, there are so many troubled owners of EVs. Battery and charging issues are, of course, the first thing that comes to mind. Number 1, radical change in lifestyle is required. EVs are stalling because the government is pushing too hard instead of letting things develop at a natural pace. And when it comes to the natural pace, we're thinking about the fact that people need time to accept new circumstances. They need to accept the new reality, which requires a complete change of their lifestyles. Owning an EV is a completely different thing compared to owning a gas-powered car. Starting from the most typical thing that comes to mind, charging requires more detailed planning and is way more time-consuming compared to gas-powered cars. That's not all, it brings a completely different way of ownership. First of all, maintenance is completely different, and by the way, with things that are currently developing, it'll be a lot more about software updates than oil changes and similar things. And that's something dealers struggle with a lot already. All in all, EV ownership is more complicated, and that's what owners get in return for the premium prices they're paying. As mentioned, EVs are still notably more expensive than gas-powered cars, but the story doesn't end there. Due to the potential high repair costs and several other factors, the insurance premiums are also significantly higher compared to internal combustion cars. Then there are the resale value issues. The price depreciation is much faster with EVs. For all these things, average consumers are not delighted with the idea of purchasing an EV. They hesitate, and until car makers and the government figure out the key issues, EVs will continue to pile up on dealer lots. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.